There's a group up here. How many of you, you hadn't seen this one before? Okay, so I think John Reinheimer, you've read the book too, right? Okay, very good.
I'm listening.
Okay, you listened to us? Yeah, okay. So, what do you think? I mean, as you read it, what resonated with you? Vince, I'll let you start. I know it was the Macintosh, the Apple thing. I chose you to be on this because of your passion for Mac products.
Happy with that.
What struck you? What was there?
I resonated with it quite a bit in the sense that kind of tends to be my personality too.
Volume.
Voice. Resonated quite a bit with what was said in the sense that my personality is kind of like that. I have a hard time plugging into something without backing up and kind of getting the big panoramic picture and seeing where this fits in with what I'm doing, where it fits into the big picture. So that kind of thinking was something I was comfortable with.
Terry, as you heard that, what did you say? Oh yeah, we can't lose that. I thought that was good.
Yeah, I think as an organization, we do a lot of the what with all the different ministries that we're involved in. But sometimes I feel we don't really know why we're doing it, specifically other than the Great Commission and that sort of thing. But yeah, it was really good to me. I see a lot of other organizations that are really dedicated to their cause, such as ISIS. You wonder why would they do something like that? And so yeah, that's what resonated with me as far as what is it that makes us tick as an organization? Why do we go out?
What and the why? Betsy?
Yeah, mine was the same. He said over and over, people don't buy what you do, but why you do it. And I think the word, you can use the word when you asked us a question, is passion. I don't get terribly passionate about some of the things that I do, but I'm very passionate about why we do it. That comes from passion.
You hear what she's saying?
No.
We're not getting the book. Okay. Say that again.
Yeah, 100%. But people don't buy what you do, but why you do it. And so I think I don't get very excited about the what in my job description sometimes, but I'm very passionate about the why I do the what's. And so the word that comes to me is passion. Like, are we exuding passion when we talk to people about WGM and our ministries?
There's a lot of things on our job descriptions, aren't there, that we're not passionate about.
Why are they there?
But if we understand the why, a lot of times we don't. It does keep us going, that's true. John.
It made me think about, when I think about why, I think about who. And I think about who we're becoming before why we know we're doing something as well.
Okay.
So.
Andy, first thoughts.
Well, everybody's was kind of brief. I had something a little longer.
Gary Lee.
Well, he kept talking about buying because he's talking to people that are thinking about business. People don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it. We're thinking in different terms, and there's something that's been kind of rattling around in my head for the last 2 or 3 years about convincing people in evangelism. And this applies to a lot of other things that we try and convince people about. But he talked about the limbic brain and the neocortex, and he said that most of the decision-making actually takes place at the limbic brain level, which is the why level, rather than at the higher levels. And a lot of times we're doing our convincing at the higher level. And we're arguing in a logical way, and we think that that's going to convince people. And you see it a lot on Facebook with politics, but you don't see a lot of actual convincing taking place. And I grew up in the church, and I've heard a lot of preaching, and I've been most of my life very suspect of emotional appeals in church. because sometimes it can be very dishonest or manipulative. But I've come to realize that emotion is a really important part of our appeal to people, because, and this and some other studies that I've seen confirms that people are not making a decision at a logical level. They're making a decision at a very core level, and emotion has a lot to do with that. And so we need to be passionate and, to a certain extent, emotional without being manipulative in our interactions with people. People sense what we care about, and they sense what we're passionate about. So a lot, the logic, people a lot of times people will put the logic on top of what they already believe, as a kind of an explanation, as if that were right, why they really believed it. But in fact, the belief has taken place first, and then the rationalization for most of us, that's happened later. And so that, since a lot of what we do is speaking, a lot of what missionaries do, we talk about what we believe, and we evangelize and we disciple. We have to, I think, be passionate about it ourselves, and it means we have to have a deep level conviction and relationship-based belief that has to be prior to all of the logic and all of the convincing that sometimes gets put on top of that. And it reminds me of something that Dr. Kinlaw used to say. If God moves on me to share the gospel with somebody, I have to remember that I'm not the first person or the last person in that sequence. That God has already been working on that person for a long time, and I don't have to convince him. I don't have to go through all of the logic and dot all my I's and cross all my T's in order for that person to come to a relationship with Christ. What I have to do is be real and authentic and passionate in that moment with that person in that context. So that was some of what this made me think about.
Yeah, I didn't know we were allowed to talk that much, so. No, I think what really helped me in the why of what we do with as World Gospel Mission is when I went through the First Vision Conference. Not that I hadn't thought of this stuff before, but to realize that we're joining God in restoring His kingdom back to the natural state that it was supposed to be in. And, a lot of times up before that, I thought it was just about proclamation, just about certain parts of it. But when we went through that, and I'm talking about the Discipling Nations Alliance and what we've been putting forth there, is that everything that we do, that's a why of why we do it, is to bring God's creation back to where it was, or God's kingdom back to where it was supposed to be. And so, when I think of it that way, everything that we do, then we should be passionate about. And we should be the ones influencing the world instead of the world putting that influence on us.
At the beginning of his talk, he started out with this thing of, some people do it, most people do it this way, and these other organizations do it the exact opposite way. So he was proposing a number of major paradigm shifts in how we think and how we communicate, right? What are some of the implications of those paradigm shifts for WGM as a whole, or your ministry, or your region, or your department? As you thought through that, what are some of the things you say, boy, we got some talking, we need some thinking, and maybe some significant changing that needs to happen? What are some of the things that came to your thoughts? And after you speak, I'm going to ask you all to give your thoughts as well.
I mean, for me, what I was thinking about... Oh, go ahead, sorry.
The one item that has changed in our minds over the last long while, little by little, is coming to a realization of a motivation, a deeper motivation even the idea of evangelizing, even the idea of seeing people saved, even the idea of working for the kingdom, of that even being one step back in the sense of our purpose, a bigger purpose in life of being in a right relationship with God that brings glory to Him, to glorify God. That seems like a healthier motivation. When I hear talk about 400,000 people, a month or a day that go into eternity, rather than taking that as saying, yeah, and if you would have reached them, they would have gone to a different place. I think that side in the past, we've kind of looked at that in that interpretation, but I kind of like the way it's being presented in the sense that these are people whose lives were made to give glory to God, and they're going into eternity without God being able to receive the glory that He's due. And I think that's a healthier motivation to be able to go into evangelism and all the work that we do. That's kind of foundational for us as we go about anything we do. The idea is by doing this, the behind the scenes, the belief is that this is what we're created to do, and that this brings glory to God. So that changes it a lot, rather than a motivation of being of fear or guilt, right? And because you have to deal seriously with an idea that says, if one person isn't obedient to their call, will this person who didn't have a chance to hear the gospel because of that end up in his spending eternity apart from Christ? Is that the action of a just God? And so I think God has ways of reaching those who are going to be open to make sure they hear the gospel. But the bigger motivation then would be to think this person's life, Christ died for that life. This is intended to bring glory to God, and I want to be involved. I want to help and partner with Him so that glory can get to Him.
Okay. John, you.
I've been thinking about this in the context specifically of mobilization and communication, just WGM as a whole, and definitely don't have it all figured out. But I've just kind of noticed as I've talked with whether it's professors, students, I think with the next generation, hearing a kind of consistent frustration, and I just started seeing a trend, I feel like, of people addressing more of the what and the how. Of just, again, kind of like Andy was saying, simply, not that we don't need to have good, solid arguments for our minds to come around, but when you go after just at least I think when you go after just the how, there's a frustration that happens when you don't get the heart as well. And so I don't know if I fully agree with Simon. I know he's a genius and all, but I think while I understand how neurologically he's speaking and the brain makes its decisions, I think there's a heart level there that when we go after somebody and connect with someone and we recruit them strictly because we have this great program, here's why we are better than every other missions organization. Here's how we're going to, do this better than anybody else. That to me, that feels like a fruit. And then as soon as it doesn't happen that way on our fields, we find people really frustrated. We're really frustrated. They're really frustrated, and then they leave. And instead, I kind of have been thinking about this kind of weird. Why not raise the bar and say, here's the kind of people we're looking for? And the only thing I've come up with so far is, I've said this to some of you, is the why for me, or part of the why, I don't think it's exhaustive, is being willing to pray this dangerous prayer of God, I'm willing to go anywhere and do anything. I tell you, WGM, not everybody, but I hear a common thread of we're a people of yes. We want to say yes to God in the hard places. We want to say yes to God. There's something in my heart that I didn't know was even there. We want to say yes to I'll go evangelize that person. Yes, I'll start that new field. Yes, I'll go even if I don't have all the answers. And if we have, this is my personal conviction so far, is that if we have those kinds of people, the what and the how will begin to, you can be flexible in those things and you get the right person. And then someone can come to us and we can say, oh, that's not your heartbeat. Well, we bless you, we love you, you're going to hate it here. You're not going to enjoy it because we're weird. This is the kind of people we are. We say yes to Jesus, and we don't want to settle. And we want to go after people that say, God, I will go anywhere and do anything.
Thoughts out here? Yes, Jeff.
I have something.
So he said, profit is not why, it's a result. And so we're not in a business.
Did you hear what she said?
Am I not talking?
Okay, I want to be sure.
And so it's not business, but if you think of profit as, okay, what's the result that we want, then it can be, okay, we want to evangelize, we want so many souls saved, we want impact. Okay, that's the result, doubling the impact. But I think that if you go back to the why instead of the result, then it's back to some of the things that have been set up here about the kingdom focus and about our right relationship with God. And so if we keep that why, then there's going to be less burnout, because what's the why is that right relationship with God and bringing God's kingdom back to earth. And so therefore we take our Sabbaths, like Member Care wanted us to, and we don't run our wheels trying to get the results, because the results are going to come in our obedience and our daily walk with Jesus. And then that's going to bring the impact that we want. It's not in us just running and running and running and running and doing for the result, but it's in the why, this relationship, that's going to bring the impact.
Thoughts? If you were to put an item on your team meeting's agenda from something you got from these comments or from Senec, what would that agenda item be?
I think it goes right along with the thought that it's more important to be than to do. And the being deals more with the why than it does the what or the how. So I think it all ties together.
Thank you. What's the agenda item? How do you put that on the agenda of the team meeting? Anybody can help me, by the way.
What are our whys?
What are our whys? One of the things I found so interesting was how hard it is to express the whys. It's like,
a group of logical people.
It's like I tell my wife, I love you. And she says, why? I don't know, I just do. And then I start naming what she does or how she does things that endear her to me, but it doesn't really express the why. And that always helps me to know that why is language poor. But that doesn't mean we don't do it. Because that is when we make those the why connections. That's where passion. How about this? A number of years ago, WGM made a shift in some of its terminology where we were not talking as much about ministries as we were causes. Right? And any observations on that from what you heard Senec say? Because, I mean, the cause kind of fits in with the why side of things. The ministry is the what and how. And obviously, even though we have causes, we have ministries, and that's what our job description is all about.
Well, I would say that it made me remind me of a couple of things. Both had to do with what we call now CMS. Back in my first term, I don't know, deputation or something, I don't know. But this past January, going through it, and I'm not remembering who said it, when we were to make up our presentations, the practice presentations, it was to distinguish between our mission and our activity. In other words, you want to present your mission. What is your call on your life? What's your passion? What are you about? And rather than focusing on how's that all going to work out. Yeah, you help out at the kids club, but that's not your passion. That's not your why. It's really discipleship, and go from there. The other point from the earlier one, Stan Lewis said, people don't give to missions because there's a need. If that were the case, it'd be all taken care of. Everybody knows there's a need. People give because of their connection to you. And so linking that passion in us invites and engages others to be a part of buying in to that mission that we're affiliated with that cause.
Thank you. Thank you. Got our CMS presentations. There's a lot of implications in this, isn't there? As we interact with our sporting champions.
Something I heard that was connecting with the talk last night about spiritual leadership. I thought it was interesting. The TED Talk wasn't using this language, but he was talking about the people that are followed because of who they are, because of the core of who they are, and that's really not because of what they do, but not there. The difference between those who lead and leaders is what he was saying. Those who lead is out of who they are, which is what Steve Morey yesterday was saying. That's spiritual leadership. That's the anointed leadership based off of our character. And I thought it was interesting having a secular interpretation of the same truth from last night and this morning that resonated again.
Thank you. Ned, you look like you were going to
Yeah,
say
I was thinking back on the agenda question. I don't want to go backwards. I don't know if you've gone or not.
You're fine.
Okay. But would a good way to do that is with every meeting we have, or with select meetings we have, could there not be an agenda item that says Sabbath time, sit in silence for 15 minutes, 20 minutes? Would that have productivity? Could we view that just the same as accomplishing a checklist of we've got to make this plan, we've got to take this action, we've got to solve this budget? Could we implement it into the agenda as part of a meeting process where we hear from God first as a being, and then we can go to action with the doing? Just a thought of how to put it into the agenda.
it resonates well with our discernment process.
So I was also thinking of agenda item, you could put like spiritual formation or spiritual discipline. Because to get to the why, as we've agreed, is getting at the being and how do we be who we need to be. It's in Christ. It's in our spiritual disciplines when we are engaging the Word of God, when we are praying, when we are listening. And so if we are doing that individually, we'll bring that into our corporate gatherings, our corporate being, and it will flow into our corporate doing. And the why will become known to us because the one who's giving us the why will tell us. We'll be let in on his conversations. We'll know his heart and mind.
Thank you. We have 1 minute left.
And we were challenged at one point by somebody to take a look at all of our life and take an evaluation and say, are there things in our life where we're using God as a means to an end, as opposed to pulling that back and saying, he's the end, and when we use him as a means to an end, then we've gone. That somehow helps me to separate those things which don't fall into the category of the whys, and would rather be in the category of a what.
Any other last thoughts you'd like to make?
One of the statements he made was, if you talk about what you believe, you will attract those who believe what you believe. And it just struck me that you really have to know what you believe and separate that from just the things that you know and the things that you think or the things that you do. And I think as an organization or as field organizations, that has to be something we spend a lot of time thinking about in our meetings. Do we still believe the things that we say are our mission statement? If we don't all believe that, then how can we be an effective unit on the field? Because we can't start with the why there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I still go back to the idea that as an organization or as a Christian Christ follower, that our why is pretty simple. I mean, it's the Great Commission, go and make disciples, and then everything else is pretty much the how we go about doing that. And
So that's the way I'm thinking.
I wonder if in our discussions about culture and tradition, culture is closer to the why side, and our traditions are closer to the how and what side. So this might help inform us on that. Thank you all very much. Thank you for your thoughts. Let's take a quick 5-minute break.